You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money. Welcome back, my sassy friend, to another episode of Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie. I am the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach and, of course, this podcast. And today I have Skyler Fleming. He is a personal finance podcast host. He hosts Money Talk with Skyler Fleming, a podcast dedicated to starting conversations around money so we can all do better with money. He found a love for money when he was young and working at a call center for a credit union. He saw a lot of people going through some really hard financial times, and he quickly learned more about money than he was ever taught just by helping other people. This has helped him find his passion for helping to teach other people about money. So that led him to become the host of the Money Talk with Skyler Fleming, where he spends time talking to experts and regular everyday people about how to manage and learn about finances, which of course is my favorite subject because that's the reason why I started the Cash and Sass podcast, is because I wanted to kick money taboo to the curb and us have candid conversations about money. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here today. I truly appreciate it. And I thought we would dive into, we were discussing what we were going to talk about right before we went live. And I think it's a good subject to talk about marriage and money and how to discuss those through those different viewpoints. So what got you to where you actually look at those types of things, like the marriage and the money and being able to see the different viewpoints?
Yeah, honestly, it's my wife and I's experience. We've been married for going on 4 years this year. And it's just interesting to see through our own experience all the different things we have to deal with when it comes to money. There's student loans, budgeting, credit card debt. How are you going to set up your accounts? And then once you get beyond just the logistics of how all that works, there's emotion behind all of it. And that's really when it got into, hey, this is something we have to talk about because... And I'd be happy to share it if we want to talk about student loans a little bit more. But my wife and I went through something where I was all math and she brought the behavioral aspect and the emotion to it. And that really helped me see the bigger picture and like what she was feeling and thinking. So that's why I think it's so important for couples to talk about money in a marriage, is the logistics are honestly the easy part.
Yeah, because a lot of times, student loans is part of money process, right? I mean, when a lot of us think about the student loans, we get, tightness in our chest and we get aggravated because we're paying so much. Or, there's some of us like me who went back to school when we were in corporate because we were told if we go back to school and get this certain type of degree, we'll get whatever. And we didn't. And now we have this, huge debt. And I think changing our mindset around it is really huge, right? But you're right. There's a lot of emotions behind those student loans that has caused, a lot of people to not know how to talk about it. I mean, especially if you've never talked about money before, it's kind of hard to discuss your emotions about it when, you were brought up being told you're not supposed to talk about money to begin with.
Yeah, emotions are hard enough to talk about too, like that separate from money. And then you start bringing money and the connection to us as like, do we feel like that's our value or not? Like there's a whole lot of things where money ties in to make it really uncomfortable.
So I'm going to ask, what kind of conversations, or how did y'all go about having some of these conversations to where it's not so, I don't know, where you want to strangle each other? I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening going, yeah, no, do you want us both to live? And we do. We want y'all to be able to have conversations about money. I think it's really important, and be able to have those conversations and have those emotions and it be okay. So how did y'all approach that to where, again, you're able to have those conversations?
Yeah, for us, it was setting a money talk expectation. So when are we going to talk about money? We go as far as an agenda to make sure things are written down. And that helps me, I guess, curb my research mind that I have, where I like to look up everything. And we found it where before I started my podcast, I was telling my wife all the time about, oh, we could be doing this with our money. We could be doing this, crypto, this, IRAs, this, that, all that sort of stuff. And it was overwhelming her. And that led to the podcast. So I had somewhere to talk about it. But that also led us to say, we need some sort of an agenda. We created our monthly budget meetings where if there's something that comes up financially on either of our minds, we'll write it down in that agenda and talk about it each month on the last Sunday of the month when we budget for the next one. But that allows us to know we're going to talk about money, but it also sets the table that here's when we're going to do it and here's what we're going to talk about. Of course, if things come up that we need to talk about sooner, we don't wait if there's consequences before then and stuff like that. But really, it was setting an expectation so that we could be both prepared mentally for that, because I think so oftentimes one couple is feeling the weight of credit card debt because they're looking at it more. And so they keep bringing it up randomly to the other spouse, and the other spouse is thinking, wow, we must be drowning in credit card debt with how much you bring it up. And maybe it's not that bad, but you don't talk about it in a healthy way because you bring it up so randomly. So I would say set the expectation, and set a regular time for you to talk about it.
I like how you call it a money talk meeting. I like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I mean, because then it's like we're gonna have, we're gonna meet on the last Sunday, and it's our money talk. It's our money.
Mhm.
That's our money talk day, and just making it to where you're able to have those conversations, which is so important. One of the things that and I'm going to ask is, how do you discuss through those different viewpoints? Because you have someone who maybe grew up not ever talking about it, and doesn't ever look at money, and doesn't want to look at the money,
Mhm.
or they want to, but they're not sure how they understand it. So how do you go through those different viewpoints of being able to discuss those things, right?
Yeah, and I think you gotta kind of push a little bit beyond the, oh, how do you feel about that? Oh, good. Like those kind of quick responses that we tend to give. It's like, no, how do you really feel about it? Do you have any thoughts, concerns? Like kind of push back. It's almost like when you ask people, how are you? And they just say good. It's kind of
Yeah.
like the same thing can go on with your money talks where you say, how do you feel about this? And they trust you, so they're gonna go with the decision. But it's like, how do you really feel about it? Because that's gotten to the point where I'm like, to my wife, I'm like, hey, how do you feel about this? And she says, good. I trust your decision. I'm like, well, what are your thoughts going through your mind? And she explores one, and then we talk about it a little bit more. So I say, just ask a little bit of a deeper question, like, why do you
Right.
feel
Like
good?
what kind of emotions are coming up for you,
Because there's
like,
something there. Yeah.
right. Or, how did, I had somebody, when I said good, they were like, really? How does this feel in your chest right now? Or how does it feel in
Yeah.
your body? And then when you start, you're like, well, I actually have okay, well, if you have a tightness in your chest, then it actually doesn't feel good then, does it?
Yeah. Did your heart rate increase? Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's important to have those, and to recognize that, okay, you know what? This kind of stresses me out to hear this,
Mhm.
and okay, well, tell me why. Well, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to, with all the love in the world, actually listen, y'all.
Yes.
If you
Yeah. I was going to say
ask,
that too.
whether it's your spouse or your kid or um, one of your team members, one of your, for example, I have a right hand person. When I ask her a question, and I ask her, I shut up and I listen, because if you don't, then they're gonna think, well, you were asking me, but do you really want to know? It's kind of like how
Yep.
when we ask people, how are you? And they say, well, and then they go to, when they go to well and they go to answer, you've gone on to something else.
Yeah.
The reason why we do those short responses of good is because we don't really think you want to know, right? And so it's important when we're having these conversations, especially money, is to make sure that they know that we're asking because we really want to know, and that we're going to really pay attention to what they have to say.
Yes.
You mentioned sinking funds. I love buckets. I have virtual buckets, like, for everything.
Yes. Same thing. Yeah.
I love my virtual buckets. Okay, they have saved me forever. But when you talk about sinking funds and buckets, did it help y'all to set those type of things up for y'all so that you could see what was going where?
Yes, tremendously. And honestly, I've built out our whole custom spreadsheet and stuff. I'm that kind of a spreadsheet nerd. So we honestly have a sinking fund for really every category, just kind of like everything floats over a little bit for each budget. And it honestly does help us. Like you said, it saved you a couple times. For us, we have ones that we very specifically use sinking funds or buckets to save for things like car registration, insurance, and things like that. And it saves us a little bit of extra money to be able to do that. But those have been a huge help because we'll often put $20 a month into like what we call our personal goods category, but that'll be like every 4 months, like the shampoos and the conditioners and things like that will all come up at once, and that can add up pretty quickly. But we're never really thinking, oh, we just spent a ton of money on the odds and ends around the house to help clean and stuff like that, because we're slowly budgeting towards that. So I think they just take a lot of stress off our mind to where we're not suddenly scrambling to say, oh, we can't enjoy something else this month because something else came up. So we're just slowly saving over time. And then it's also helped us with the big things. My wife's in PA school right now. She graduates in a couple months. And after that, we're going to go to Hawaii on a trip to celebrate. And we've been saving for 3 or 4 years at this point. And honestly, that's all it took. Like we were never stressed about going to have the money because we set a realistic time frame and use those buckets to save the money over time. And now we're saying, let's spend it. And it's going to be super fun.
Yeah. And see, and I've talked about this before. I did this, I do actual different savings accounts, and I call them virtual buckets. And I had a savings account to take my daughter. She's autistic and she was graduating high school, and she also has generalized anxiety disorder, so she doesn't like being around people with her autism all. But she wanted to go on a cruise, and that is what she wanted. That was the one thing she wanted. And so in the middle of her junior year, the beginning of right before her beginning of her senior year, she says, "That's what I want." And so I opened up a bucket, virtual savings, another savings account, called it that. And I'm big, you nickname it, whatever it was, so that your brain knows that is what that money is for. Because again, if it just says savings account and there's no name, you're going to be like, oh, I can just take this money for whatever.
Yeah.
So we named it, and it was her graduation cruise. And I purposely put so much money in there over a year. It was like a year, and I say a year and a half because it was almost towards her end of her junior year. And doing that, I was able to pay for it, for everything.
Yeah. And
without
I have a
going
question
over.
too that comes up.
I was able to book the thing like 6 months before we were going to go. I was able to then do the added attractions or whatever, the things that you want to do, without stressing over it. And it was because I was consistently putting money in there, and I didn't have to worry about, oh, well, how is I going to handle this if something happened with my vehicle? Because I have a vehicle savings account. And y'all, that vehicle savings account has helped me so much over the last, few years.
That one's huge.
That huge. Now I need to get it built back up because South Carolina, we pay taxes every year on our vehicle. We pay property taxes. We're one of the few states that do that. And I know that that's going to come up in September for my vehicle, and my vehicle savings was drained just recently because I had the trailer hitch box, or I don't know, some computerized box decided to go out. And it kept dinging, which was really annoying. And so it cost a few $100s to fix. I actually asked them if they could just remove it since I hadn't pulled anything on the trailer. I was told no. I did try. So I was like, can you just remove it?
Just rip it off. Yeah.
Apparently it cost more to do that than it was to fix the fuse. So I had to do that. So it drained it a little bit, right? Because before then there were some other things, or I had to get 2 new tires, is what it was. And so now I'm slowly but surely building it back up. But having those accounts really, really help, right? And it helps even if you don't have all of the money in there. I want to stress that, because there was one time that I had something go wrong with my vehicle. I have a credit card that I use just for emergencies. And then we put a plan together, pay it off, and then it's down to zero, and it's only used again for emergencies. Because a lot of times, because you're having those savings accounts, you don't really have cash like at hand. So it's just easy for me to use the credit card and then transfer the money and pay it. And so, for example, I needed 2 new tires, and I happen to have a Suburban that has these big tires. They're bigger than, I don't know, they're the 22 inches or something. I don't know. They're big tires. I'm not a tire person, but apparently everybody can look at my rims and know that I have these nice big tires. They're also expensive tires, let me just tell you. And so it was it was costing me over $800 to get 2 tires. And I didn't quite have enough in that savings account, but I knew the following time I paid myself, I was putting more in there. So I was able to put it on the card. I moved what I had in the savings account, paid it down, and then as soon as I was going to pay myself the amount that I was going to put in the savings account, I just put the part that didn't need to go to the card in there, and then the other part paid the card off. So it's a matter of, like you say, being analytical, doing your research, and just being very strategic, right? And I think that's just really, really important because, y'all, I say it all the time. Life happens. You can plan and prepare all you want, but life happens. And sometimes when life happens, you have unexpected expenses that you're going to have to take care of and have, like you're talking about, we do the same thing for our groceries. We have we decided to open up a separate checking account just for our groceries because I wanted to be able to do groceries once a week. And so we have an account at a totally different bank, the debit card, and that is the only thing it's for is groceries and our household supplies. That's it. And we were able to more easily track it. And because we go once a week, we're able to see how we're doing, especially since the prices of groceries and all that stuff has increased so much over the last 6 months.
Track it easily.
Right? I don't care what anyone says. This stuff has increased like tremendously over the last 6 months. And I have found it's better for us to go once a week because then we don't overspend. We get just what we need to food prep and all for the week. And we can see, like you said, where we're at and how we're doing. And us doing it on a separate account also makes sure that no matter what, we've got that, we've got to eat. We have the money for the food. Now I have it as a Capital One so that it's, again, if there's, like if I transfer money from my account to Capital One and there's a slight 2-day delay and I need to go to the grocery store, I can use that emergency card to use it because it's also Capital One and I can, transfer it. I just recommend it being a separate checking account. You can have it your same bank. We don't. We wanted it different because I didn't want no one to touch that money. That money was for food and only food.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want all of a sudden to decide you need it and go, use it. And we only have one. We didn't get 2 debit cards. We just got one. So that way we didn't accidentally use it for something else. And so again, it's doing that helps you be able to see where you're at with your budget, right? What other sort of savings accounts do you have? I've talked about the different savings accounts that I've had on some of my other podcasts, but I want the listeners to understand that there's different ways you can do it. What are some of the other things that you have? You talk about vehicle. You've been saving for Hawaii, which I think is freaking amazing. My daughter wants to go to Hawaii, so now I can tell her, okay, if we start saving, like in 3 to 4 years, we could go. That might be
expensive.
That might be a good. Yeah, it might be her graduation present. My youngest starts high school in a year, so if we start now.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. If we start now, her going to 8th grade, we should be able to have enough by the time she graduates high school, and that could just be her graduation present. She's been wanting to go for like the last 3 years. I'm like, and she's like, "Oh, we have enough money now." I'm like, "No, baby, it's expensive. It's not it's not a cheap trip." No. But you're gonna have. I mean, how long are y'all going?
10 days is what we're aiming for. So
nice.
Yeah, so we'll be there for quite a while. I've been working on planning it while my wife's still in school, so it's going to be fun. We're excited for it. And maybe your daughter will listen to the podcast.
And it's not going to be stressful, right, for you to get there because you've saved for it. You've been saving for it. So
and also it allows me to look at things like not first class, but like one-way tickets, direct flights. That's the word I'm looking for. It allows me to look for those kind of things and feel more comfortable about it because I'm not trying to pinch pennies because I know we have a good amount saved for this. So it allows me to be a little bit more comfortable with saying, oh yeah, that's going to be a few $100s and that's okay. So that's where I think these buckets come into play is it allows you to comfortably spend the money. Like we had a situation where we had to get new tires, just like you said, and we were only going to get 2 because I was like, oh, we only kind of need 2. And the person said, well, 4 would probably be best because the other ones will need to be replaced pretty soon after, so let's just do all 4. And we're like, okay, because we had the money there. We were fine with the price, and the money was there. Like you said, it went over a little bit what we had, but we have money in other places. We know we can build it back up quickly. Put it on a credit card gives you 30 days to pay it off before you get interest, roughly.
Right. And
like
if you've got one that's got points or money back, and you pay it off in the 30 days, and you go ahead and transfer the money then the account to that. And then when you get the other part of the money, pay it. Now you've got free cash or free points. And also, like with travel, even if I've got the money, I'll put it on the card because I want the miles.
Yeah.
And then I transfer the money
exactly
the money and pay it. So you're earning
all of our
things all the way
expenses go on
around.
a credit card.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's honestly what I was going to mention as another bucket is your credit card rewards. Because my wife and I have enough money saved up for Hawaii just by itself in our account. But then we've also had these credit cards we've been spending on for years. And I honestly think we're over like $1,400, $1,500 in just like cash back, like just basic cash back that we also can then use to help have a little more fun, do those little extra things that cost a little bit more. So even like credit card rewards become their own bucket when you just leave them alone and let them sit there. And then say you're like, wow, we have several $100s on this one credit card that pays, like we use the Walmart credit card for their 5% back on online orders. We could get like, honestly, I think several months of groceries for free. And that would be huge for people if they could say, oh, we're in a tight spot. I'm going to use my rewards now to pay for groceries. And that's going to free up so much money for my budget and things like that.
Yeah. And I'm going to say that here's the key. Again, if you've not listened to any of my podcasts, go back and listen to like several of them because I've said this, I know, at least 1,000 times. You must be strategic with the credit cards. If you've got them maxed out and you're spending them willy-nilly and you're not being responsible, then you need to basically put some earplugs in your ears and not listen to any of this conversation.
That's true. Yeah, it's not worth it.
Because it'll get you into trouble. And I can say that for sure because been there, done that. I have gotten myself in trouble with credit cards. I'll be 51. And I have gotten myself into credit cards, gotten myself in trouble with credit cards several times over in my 50 years. And I have learned because, again, I had to teach myself how to be more strategic and teach myself about the money and all those things. I have learned how to manage the debt better. I'm also going to say that if you have to carry a credit card debt, that's not necessarily a bad thing because, again, life happens. However, what I do when I have to is I use those points to help knock the balance down. Those points in this cash back don't get to go to anything else except to knock that balance down, especially when life happens and your buckets were drained because again, life happens. And you just you have to remember to be disciplined and be strategic. I have like miles being added up and last few months ago, I was doing a deep dive with my coach and I was traveling. So I was able to upgrade my ticket because I had the extra points. And then because of all the traveling I'd done over the last couple of years, money was a little bit tight because my business was making a shift. I was able to get the hotel free. The hotel's not those 2 nights for free because I had enough points. So I didn't have to pay anything. I think I had to pay like $20 in taxes. And that was it.
Or something, yeah.
Yeah, and that was it. So those things, and again, it adds up. So like you're talking about with the groceries, think about it, especially with the economy the way it is, if you're able to be strategic and then you're able to use that money, I can use that for free groceries this month. I've got enough. Now you've got that money to put somewhere else to your grocery fund to build it up. In the next month. Yeah. Again, being responsible and being strategic, I think is if you get nothing out of that, I think that's the biggest thing.
Be strategic. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, here's the thing. You don't have to be a finance person or a numbers nerd or a spreadsheet nerd to learn how to be good with money. Okay. 1, you have to change your relationship with money because you got to change the way you think about it. And then 2, you have to be responsible and strategic and disciplined to make sure you're using it where you're not just spending to spend. You have to make sure that you're being responsible. And if you find yourself in where you don't understand something, reach out and lean in and get the help because
Yeah.
That's
Talk
what
about
a lot
money.
of us are here for, right? To talk
Mhm.
about it. Because when you talk about it or you ask questions, you're going to learn different things. I absolutely love the different types of buckets that you have. That's and the fact that you saved for Hawaii. So I'm going to ask, what other type of buckets do you have besides? We know you had the one for Hawaii. We know you have the one for the vehicle. What are some of the other
Mhm.
ones that you've had to help you?
Yeah. We have quite a few. We have one that's like a shopping one that we slowly save for my wife to be able to buy like a new dress if she wants one, or if we need a new phone or something like that. That's a good one to just slowly plug away money, because when you buy a phone,
I call that one Lisa spending.
yeah, yeah, we also have
I
our own
do.
we have our own personal funds that slowly get money, and I tend to buy one-time bigger purchases where my wife spends it all on little things for sewing 'cause she likes to sew. So there's really any countless ways you could use these. And I just love to almost turn it into, instead of a monthly payment to some sort of lending company, or like when you buy a new iPhone, it says $20 a month for 24 months. If you just do that $20 now, by the time your phone's actually dead, you can just buy the new phone and save a little bit of money there. So it just helps get that mindset shift to turn it so that you're paying yourself those monthly payments and saving up the money rather than living your life on a monthly payment. It kind of just helps turn the perspective that you're in control instead of feeling like everyone's just grabbing at all the little bits they can each month.
Yeah, because one of the buckets I have kids. I have two girls, and uh, I have one that's called My Girls. That is for school supplies. That is for their
Hmm.
clothes. That is for the things that all of a sudden they need new. For example, my 13-year-old all of a sudden needed a new pair of shoes. And apparently, she'd grown a shoe size and a half. I was like, wait a minute, how that
Yeah.
happen? um, and so she's got new shoes, and putting, like you're talking about, $25 a month or $20 a month. When I started, it was $10 a month. Now it's more than that. But
It adds up though.
even starting out at $10 a month, just starting out with what you have, even if it's $5 a month, starting out, you're gonna find, if you're calling it your kids' clothes or whatever, and you don't touch it, that when they do need those clothes, you're going to have money saved up that's not going to like stress you out to, I don't know, the moon and back, to go buy school supplies or go buy clothes, because I know school supplies would stress me out every blasted year, especially
Yeah.
when you got two or more than two and the list is like a mile long, right? Um, and would always affect our monthly budget. And doing that bucket, calling it My Girls, and knowing that school supplies went in there, and making sure that I was putting money in there for that, I haven't had to worry about it. Because
Hmm.
9 10 times they need a new book bag, because I don't know, my kid seems to destroy hers over the year, over the school year, because again, they give them heavy stuff to put it, so much heavy stuff to put
Hmm.
in there. Um, so it just helps from the stress wise. And then another one I do is I have pets. So I have one that's called Fur
Hmm.
Babies. And let me tell you, an emergency vet bill is not something you want to have hinkering in with
Yeah.
your monthly budget. Those things are nothing to play with. And I have a lab and I have a husky, and I have had to take the lab to the emergency vet. And that fur baby account has saved me, or their heartworm medicine that we buy every 6 months for both of them. It's a little over $350, something like that. Again,
Hmm.
they're my fur babies. I'm going to take care of them, right? So having money go in that account every month has been a lifesaver, because I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about how I'm going to buy their heartworm medicine or take them to the vet, or if an emergency happens, how am I, going to pay that? Because the goal is yes, not to have to charge it on the card and leave it. We charge it on the card because we want the points or the cash back, but I want to be able to immediately move that money, to pay it. So that's where being that disciplined, and then also leveraging the debt and using it to your advantage, right? Because again, as entrepreneurs, I've said this time and time again, you will have some debt at some point in time. You will carry debt, and as long as you're being responsible, and leveraging it, using it to grow, then you're going to be able to pay it off, and then you'll be able to, grow even more. If you look at all the millionaires and the multi-billionaires, they have leveraged their debt. They've used it to their advantage. And that's just really, really huge. And making sure that you're disciplined enough to be able to do that. Skyler, I thank you so much for being on here. I've totally, I could talk about this all day, y'all.
They're fun. Yeah. Sinking funds are great.
Right. And buckets. I love buckets. They're I have, honestly, people laugh at me, but I have 15 different ones. But I love them because they're for specific things. And like you said, I'm paying myself. I'm just putting in these different buckets so that I'm going to be able to use the money later, and it's allocating the funds to specific things. But thank you very much for being on here. I truly appreciate it. For my sassy friend, I hope that this was enlightening, and that you see that being able to think outside the box and have these different buckets and have them work for you can actually help you be able to manage your money better. Know where your money is going, and then also take a lot of stress off, and also see the importance of being able to communicate with, whether it's your spouse or your significant other, or, whoever, your roommate, whoever it may be, to be able to actually really, truly have some conversations and schedule a money talk day. I love that.
Yep.
So until next time, remember to stay sassy. Bye.
Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.thesassywealthcoach.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.thesassywealthcoach.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode, and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.